Andarki namaskaram. Good evening to everybody. I come from a very different stable. I come from the government. Unlike the businesses and companies, governments don't face extinction. They don't die. Parties come and go, but governments are here to live. So we don't really face a competition. Government is a monopoly. And therefore, probably, governments are also suspect, especially, people like you and corridors like these and institutions like these, they suspect government. In fact, one of our great economists, Milton Friedman, said, if you put government in charge of Sahara Desert, if you put government in charge of Sahara Desert, in 5 years' time, you'll have sand scarcity. So that is the reputation of governments.
It's even better than the camel by the committee.
But then you see, in Andhra Pradesh, Harishkar knows, and Jay is here, we are doing things very differently. We are living in an age where everything is being not only disrupted, but it's being redefined. The equations are redefined. Innovations and disruptions have been happening, I think, since the primitive man. When the plow was invented, it was disruption. From food gathering economy to agriculture, electricity, steam. After that, electricity. Every day, every age, the rapidity might be different. I mean, it might have taken from one disruption, one innovation to the other, maybe a century, a couple of centuries, then goes half a century or a decade. Now it's probably every 6 months or even every 2-3 months, probably that. But then disruptions have been happening, innovations have been happening. But what is now very prominent and very sharp, and that is what is really throwing a lot of companies into dustbins, is the redefinition. Redefining the relationship between man and machine, redefining the relationship between a product and a platform, redefining the relationship between the core and the crowd. These kind of redefinitions are happening. And then how, from government of Andhra Pradesh point of view, how are we looking at these redefinitions? And how are we looking at these and how are we understanding these redefinitions? And how are we, to some extent, whatever it is possible in a government system, we are adopting these redefined ways and innovative ways. I can tell you one thing, is that if you spend, I think some of the ISB alumni do come, and there are Chief Minister's Fellows, and they are with EDB, they are with Government of Andhra Pradesh, they are with Chief Minister's Office. They would vouch this for me, is that if you spend about 4 or 5 days or a week in the government, in our secretariat, and then you just sit there and listen to what's the conversation, what's the dialogue that's happening, and then come up with a word cloud. I can tell you, the most prominent words in that word cloud are going to be, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, digital disruption, digital technology, drones, CCTV cameras, real-time governance, updation, etc., etc. This is the kind of word cloud that you would find. This is, to start with, this is what the entire ecosystem that exists in a government is being challenged by the present government. This is one. The second one is, all this is done with the citizen as the center. We are not doing innovation, we are not bringing in digitization, we are not bringing in technology, we are not bringing in all these high-fi words, etc., etc. Not for the sake of those, but how do we serve the citizen? How do we help the citizen? How do we empower the citizen? How do we make him, how do we enable him to access the services of the government? And how, between the citizen and the government, there are no middlemen. For instance, if you talk about Ola or what's the other taxi? Uber, etc., etc. What is essentially it has done is that it has completely destroyed the middleman, isn't it? So what we have done now, we give social welfare pensions to about 48 lakh people every month at the rate of 1,000 rupees per month. What happens? They don't have to, the old people, the widows, handicapped, these people do not have to go and like a supplicant stand before an officer or an office, or the amount is deposited in their account, is credited to the account electronically, and then SMS alert is sent to their mobile phones. Now everybody has a mobile phone, except I think out of 48 lakh people, I think maybe about 60,000-70,000 do not have, but all others have. So it's completely eliminated. So this is the kind of the innovations, this is the kind of digitization, this is the kind of technologies, this is the kind of disruptions that we brought in. Now, why I'm saying this also is a disruption, because most people are disrupted by this. People who would go and say, look, I got this month's pension for you, so that, their bhav is more, and, their commissions, Harishchandra Prasad is saying, all these are completely eliminated. So this is one. The other thing is, the government, although it's very brutally powerful, but it's not really empowered, in the sense that it is not keyed into the kind of information and the data. Today data is power, data is new oil, data is power. You have to know on real-time basis what is happening in your territory, with your people, with the families, with the 3 point some crore families, and 4.98 crore citizens. What is happening? Now what we do is that early morning, it's real time, but we get up at maybe at 6 o'clock or 6:30, and then when we take a look at the core dashboard that we have, we have a complete update on what was the rainfall, what is the groundwater level that day, and what are the water levels in various reservoirs in the state. And at about 10 o'clock or so, by 10 o'clock, how many students have attended the schools, because it's all biometric, how many teachers have attended, how many teachers have come, how many pensions have been delivered by then, how much ration is lifted by the citizens, where are the hitches, etc., etc., etc. All this. Now, this empowers the government. So the government becomes data-driven. That government has become data-driven. Government is up to date with what is happening, from rainfall to water levels to school attendance to office attendance to ration offtake to everything. It's there. And then we also have the mechanism to understand what is the conversation that is going on in the mainstream media and in the social media. What do they think of the government? How are people responding to a particular thing? Where the lines are drawn, etc., etc. This also empowers the government. It also redefines or or makes us understand how it is being redefined. See, for instance, if when I said that the redefinition is taking place between the core and the crowd, you know, when we sit in the cabinet, that is the core of the government, isn't it? And then we have sheets of paper which says that on our ration, these many people are happy and these many people are not unhappy, not happy, and these many people are, you know, have these complaints, etc., etc. On our excise policy, this is the satisfaction level. On our schools, this is the satisfaction level, etc., etc. Now, it is no longer the hippo. It is no longer the highly paid professional opinion. It's not that, you know, half a dozen consultants sit and tell you, you know, your government is doing well and it's not doing well, etc. But on real time, we have the crowd speaking to us. That is what democracy is. So we listen to the crowd. We are keyed into the crowd.
Very interesting.
This is what is happening. So we redefine. We not only we redefined, not that we redefined, but we are keyed into the redefinition. We have now our ear firmly to the ground. So even the cabinet is overwhelmed by the data, and then it has to fall in line. So we've redefined that, or we have got into the redefinition. That's one, and then between the product and platform, we've created a platform where the entire thing, see, the government now is completely unbundled. Now, it is no longer the collector or the chief minister or the minister or the commissioner or the director who deals with these things. It's completely unbundled. If, you know, we have an initiative called the People's First, which also has a call center. The government has a call center with 1100 1100 1100, and then, you know, we handle almost about 15 to 20 lakh calls per day. We can outbound calls, we can do about 60,000, and we are anybody from any time. It's 24/7. People call and tell, and immediately the request or the complaint is registered, passed on to the department, and immediately we also use machine learning. Immediately it is classified into individual and community. Under individual, financial, non-financial. Under community, financial, non-financial. Therefore, you have individual, financial, non-financial, community, financial, non-financial. All the non-financials, we have a standard procedures of and a timeline that it should be addressed by these many days. Community, financial, non-financial, community, financial. Financial, if it is under 5 lakhs, what to do, and over 5 lakhs, between 5 and 10 lakhs, what to do, etc., etc. We have different scales. If it is too huge, big, if, suppose somebody calls up and says, I want a steel plant in my district, you know, then it's a huge thing. And the call center cannot handle that. But then that's a huge thing. But apart from those extreme cases, we respond. So it's a responsive government, leveraging technology, leveraging information technology, leveraging communications. So this is how we proceed. And then, of course, we are talking about so many apps. I mean, everything has an app these days, isn't it? So we also have an app. And the app, you go and click a photograph with your cell phone of a crop. And immediately it's developed with a cooperation with ICRISAT. You know, you click a photograph of a crop, and immediately the data is sent to the cloud, and then to various labs, whichever labs we do not know, and then the information comes back to the farmer that this crop is healthy or not healthy. If it is not healthy, these are the kind of diseases that it has or it is likely to have, and this is the kind of pesticide or whatever you need to use it. This information is beamed back to the farmer's smartphone. Now everybody has smartphone. In about a couple of minutes or less than a couple of minutes. This is the kind of app that we have. I mean, we don't use apps only to order food or pizzas, but we also
to create food.
Yeah, to create food, to help farmers create food.
Fantastic.
So this is also the kind of redefinition that we are. So we are redefining crowd and core, we have redefined. And we have redefined product and platform and machine and mind. We have done that. And of course, we have e-office, most of us are on, am I exceeding the time? I'll complete in one sentence. You see, it has its own advantages, and of course the officers have no rest also, because you see, even if they're on a holiday, I can ring them up and say, just why don't you clear the file? Because he can clear the file sitting wherever, even if he's undergoing training in Singapore also, he can clear the file. So it's fast. I tell you, Tej Bhavan, that the file clearance in Andhra Pradesh is ranging between, the slowest is 1 day.
Right.
I mean, the slowest is 3 days and fastest is less than a day. This is the kind of file clearance that we have.
Fantastic.
So, although we have no competition, we are here to stay as a government. We are still keyed into the innovations. We are using technology and helping people, empowering people, and redefining the way governance is done in Andhra Pradesh. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Parakala. That's truly inspirational. I think the stories or the examples you've given are perhaps much more than disruptive innovation. They're truly invigorating and inspirational innovation. This is an interesting question. They've not identified themselves and they haven't addressed it to a specific panelist, but I think it's an interesting question worth raising, because so far we've been sort of giving a fairly positive spin to this disruptive innovation. And this question actually builds on a point that Arnaud also raised about that the jobs that are lost are not the people who are able to benefit. So, maybe Dr. Parakala, if you could care to give some thoughts about that, this disruption being a way of life, and this is what this question is saying, and is going by the survival of the fittest theme, but in the process of a lot of this, lots of jobs and livelihoods being devastated. So, what's the sort of, solution for the people who are being left behind? What's the light at the end of the tunnel?
Can I come to that after responding?
Yeah, please.
The
other question? Sure.
Yes,
go ahead.
Which is the sector which is not really up to the disruption of technologies?
Yes. Who's lagging?
Very obviously the government.
Well, not in Andhra Pradesh, obviously.
Except Andhra Pradesh. Yes. And you see,
or Singapore for that matter.
Oh yeah, Singapore. Singapore is not, they're much advanced. They don't look at themselves as governments, probably, yes. Yeah. About this apprehension that lots of jobs are going to be lost, I think there's a real apprehension, and you hear this across the board now because of the kind of rapidity with which technologies are emerging and displacing people from their jobs. But you see, the key to this is training and retraining. Now, I think there's some research paper, I think probably by McKinsey's, which says that the current training, retraining in the developed economies, you join employment and you retire. Between these 2 points, you go for training and retraining at least about 6 to 7 times.
Right.
And probably change jobs 3 or 4 times. This is roughly, but then it's going to be more rapid. So the workforce will have to be trained and retrained. Jobs are going to change in nature. I think work is not going to disrupt it to be completely disappearing. It will be probably redefined. You know, we used to, when the Industrial Revolution started, probably people worked for 20 hours, or, 18 hours. Now, people work for 5 days a week, even 4 days a week in some places, 35 hours a week and less than 35 hours a week. It's going to change. Leisure is going to change, work is going to change, relationships are going to change, commuting is going to change, everything is going to change.
Thank you.
I don't think on that count people need to be really worried, except that everybody needs to be on their toes. I'm sitting also here as a representative of the government of Andhra Pradesh. So I must say, India-Singapore business dialogue is and of course Singapore itself and the initiative Singapore-India business dialogue is very dear to the heart of Andhra Pradesh government.
Absolutely.
And Singapore has been and it continues to be a very, very good and dear friend of Andhra Pradesh. It's been helping us with our capital, our master plan, development of the seed capital, etc. I think I should also use this platform to express the government of Andhra Pradesh appreciation and gratitude to Singapore.
Thank you, Dr. Par. I think that's an incredibly apt and appropriate way to summarize and wrap up this panel. Thank you very much, everyone, for a great panel. Thank you.